Good afternoon and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Today we delve into the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, which have reached at an all-time high, with both nations openly threatening the prospects of the war. While the Iran-Israel conflict has long been shaped by deep-rooted historical tensions and geopolitical rivalries, recent developments have heightened the crisis, and the situation in West Asia is growing more volatile with the potential to destabilize the region further. We will explore how this conflict is not only reshaping the region but also impacting the global order, particularly India's strategic and economic interests, as India carefully navigates its growing defense ties with Israel while maintaining its historical support for the Palestinian cause. We'll discuss the delicate balancing act of India's foreign policy as well. Additionally, we will look into the important lessons this conflict presents for India's armed forces in terms of strategy, intelligence, and defense preparedness. Joining us today to discuss the same is General Vinod Bhatia, former Director General of the Military Operations of the Indian Army. With his extensive experience in strategic affairs and defense, he is uniquely positioned to provide valuable insights into the evolving dynamics of the Iran-Israel conflict and its broader implications for global security and for nations such as India. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and a very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ritesh. Good afternoon to all your viewers. Jai Hind. Always a pleasure to be on your platform. Thank you very much indeed. And it's a 100th interview, I suppose, and honored.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I would like to begin the discussion by asking that what are the main historical factors that have contributed to the Iran-Israel conflict, and how do you see the recent events that have occurred, whether it's the killings of Hezbollah and Hamas chief or the Pages attack? So, what is your overall analysis of the historical context and the recent events that has unfolded?
If you go into the historical context in itself, it's a long journey. It starts about 15 centuries ago, in the 8th century AD, right? So that's a very long one, and we know world history to some extent how it's the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians, how Jerusalem got to them. But let me come down to the recent history. And the recent history, I would divide the Israel-Arab and Israel relations with neighbors and Iran especially in four phases. 47, 48 is the birth of Israel, when they migrated to the present land, Israel, the land of the Jews. And the first phase is from, let's say, 47 to 53, which is the ambivalent phase. Right? And that is something which was ambivalent. Things were just settling down, and of course, they had a war in 1948. And then the Shah of Iran and Israel had a friendly phase, which is a very rare one. And from a friendly phase in 1953 to 1979, till the Shah was dethroned, that was a friendly phase between Iran and Israel. So that is something which we have to understand. That was the Shah was very forward-looking and westernized, and then came in the Iran Revolution, and things did change, and oil came into being in '79, and the oil became very important. So that is something you have to see what has happened. So when you talk of the Iran Revolution and the phases thereafter, then you see you put it in context of '67 war, the Jampur '73 war, the Bekaa Valley, 1982, the Golan Heights. So you see, Israel has been fighting for survival of their identity and the people and as a nation for a very long time, and this is not acceptable to possibly the Arab world. Let me put it in a larger context. But this time things have changed, and this is a new phase we're starting. We're seeing a phase of very hardened positions between Iran and Israel, and the process of Iran, which is the three H's: the Hamas, the Hezbollah, and the Houthis, right? And we see a different thing altogether. And why Iran? Because Iran is about 18% population Shias, just as Sunni, and the Arab world this time has not really come out in open support. They come in support of Israel, definitely, but not with the same intensity, the same openness, the same the largest which we had seen earlier. There is a very silent support, I would say, of the Israel of Palestinians, the Lebanons. So there is very silent support. They not really come on local support of Iran also. And Iran follows the old dictum, my enemy, my enemy's enemy is my friend. So not that Iran is also isolated. You look at Iran now; it wants to take on the leadership of the Arab world. So there are a lot of dynamics at play, and it will not be very easy to get on with the complete historical record. But the fact remains, as we see today, the past, the present, and the future, things are not looking good, not looking good at all. And it's been 1 year plus a few days now when Israel has gone out all out to ensure the destruction of all inimical elements to the survival of Israel. Whether right or wrong, I'll not go to the model of the whole thing, because there are two sides to it. Right? Terrorism can't be accepted in any form, but Israel also, what it has done also is a mass scale. All wars cause destruction, devastation, doom, and pain. So what we see today is a region which has now become central to a global conflict, or a regional conflict at least, and it may go into the possibility. We can't rule out any possibilities, but it may even go to a nuclear domain.
Yeah. So how do you see Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, and how it has intensified its tensions with Israel?
See, Iran has definitely supported, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis, and these are proxies of Iran. And I see them being uh, not only supported, they've given them everything, in the sense, the organization, the shelter, the sponsors, the money, the wherewithal. So that is something, and the ideology, ideology also. Let's not forget the ideology part of it. But this is an ideological war. Basically, if you ask me, it's an ideological war between two different ideologies altogether, fighting for the survival, fighting for the homeland, which both think is theirs. Okay, so that is, otherwise Iran and Israel do not share borders. They have there are no territorial disputes. It's only ideological dispute that they have. So when you look at Iran, Iran is now trying to back the proxies which it has raised to for the destruction of Israel. A strong word I'm using, but that is what it is all about. And get the Palestinians back into their own land, as they call it, the lost land. Hezbollah is onto the north, and the Houthis into the other areas. So this is a very a mix of everything. And Iran today is no pushover again. And if you see the global order which you spoke about, you see the hegemon of the US on the one side, of the Western support of the European nations, but on the other side you find another axis which has emerged, which is the Russia, Iran, China, Korea axis. Okay, so we can't rule that out in this complete play. And you may find that the USA, people are saying, is not really supporting Israel, but they are supporting Israel. They have to support Israel. To what extent? That is a question mark, and that is where I think and put this in context of the Ukraine war, and we see a world in disorder, actually, a world in disorder, and that is where I think India's role comes into play. India is trusted with both the axes, right? Russia on one hand and the US on the other hand, and we have had a very fine balance both in the Russia-Ukraine war and the Iran-Israel conflict, also the Israel-Palestine conflict. We had a very we are trusted about the people. Our soft power, our righteousness, our responsible attitude as a nation, our objective analysis of things, where we balanced the ideology and also our own national interest, I think is paying dividends. I may say so. Maybe not. It may not be so. You can't measure it in real terms right now. But then, if you see what we are doing is we maintain a very fine balance in a very difficult situation. So that is what we must compliment ourselves.
Yeah, you talked about the role of other powers. So, what role do regional and other global powers such as US, China, and Russia play in the ongoing Iran-Israel conflict? Specifically, if we look into role of US and China.
You see, US and China are the main competitors. The strategic competition in the world order between US and China, and they have their own because US is what's a unilateral, unipolar world, and China looks at a bipolar world. India looks at a multipolar world, right? And China now has the support of Russia. China has the support of Iran. China has the support of Korea. And you look at China, what China has done over the years. China is smart. Let's have no doubts about it. China is smart, and China is looking after their interests. China many years ago started off this they gave the missile technology to North Korea, right? And they gave nuclear technology to Pakistan, and let Pakistan and Korea exchange the missile and nuclear technology. Okay, so now both Pakistan has got missile and nuclear technology, Korea has got missile and nuclear technology, and they also from Korea they send this technology to Iran and also to some extent to other nations. Right. So today you find Iran on the verge, or as someone puts it, it's just about a week away from, uh, you know, from acquiring nuclear weapon because it's got everything in place. So that is one side of it. And when China challenged the US for for bipolar world, and maybe if you look at the Chinese viewpoint, rightly so, because China is a big country again, though not economically as big, but today geopolitically, geoeconomically, geostrategically, and geotechnologically, China is strong enough to start thinking of challenging the US for the as a hegemon. Right? And so I'm not taking the Chinese side, but I'm trying to give an objective view from the Chinese perspective. We have to understand China. We have to understand the US. US again, it has got 175 bases in 80 countries. Okay, so it is not that everyone is looking after national interests, and that is where I think India is doing a great thing by balancing this interest. There's a balance of power game which is going on, and what India is doing and has to continue to do is balance the balance of interest rather, right? Because we are a growing nation. We are a growing nation. We're still not there, but we have still reached that place, our rightful place in the community of nations. So that is where I think these two axes and become very important. And the US support to Israel will continue,
Yeah.
even if Mr. Trump comes, because there will be domestic compulsions. And Iran will continue to support, uh, the proxies and continue to support the anti-Israel forces. And they will have the backing of Russia and China. And Indian interests also in oil. Oil is a very major. We have oil which flows out of the 60% oil comes from West Asia. I don't call it Middle East because Middle East is a US construct. It is Middle East for the US. For us, it is West Asia, and it is our region. And anything that happens in West Asia, India gets directly impacted. Whether it's the West Asia, whether Afghanistan, whether Pakistan, Southeast Asia, ASEAN region, and our West Asia policy has actually succeeded in the last a decade or plus a decade, I would say. They've succeeded. And we continue to maintain this balance. And if you look at Israel, Israel is our partner, and so are the Arab nations are partners today. They respect us, we respect them, and we have shared interests, we have mutual concerns, and that is where we are working together.
Yeah. So now coming in detail about India. So how has the crisis in West Asia impacted India at a macro level, and how do you view India's neutral stance in this whole conflict?
No, I would say they're neutral stance. Neutral stance would mean that when we are actually doing nothing. Okay, uh, we are trying to broker a, a responsible reasonness among the nations, right? We're trying to tell them, be reasonable. We have to look at our own trade. Our trade goes through these areas. 80% of trade goes through these areas. Right? 60% oil comes from this area. We'll have to look at our own thing. 9 million Indians in West Asia. Okay. They're important to us. They are our people, and we have to look after them. So I won't say that we have been neutral. Whatever we have done is in mutual interests, right? Whether in Arab world, there's a mutual interest, there are shared concerns. If it is Israel, it is again mutual interest, shared concerns. So it is issue-based sort of a stance where we're balancing the balance of power and the balance of trust, which we're doing. So I will not say that we were neutral. We have been reasonably proactive. Let me say that reasonably proactive, and that is where I think we have. You see, we have been impacted. Our trade has been impacted. The corridor which was supposed to come up, the Middle East corridor, it has been impacted. An unstable region will be very bad for us, for our economic growth, for our own security. So this is going to be bad for us. So we are looking at an early resolution to the issues. And like Prime Minister Modi said that Today, India has its own voice, and we are heard. And let's hope that better sense prevails. Though I'm not very hopeful, honestly. It's going to be a long haul. Uh, we can pray for it, but I don't think so. Practically, I think it's a very long haul because Israel has decided that it is now or never. And that's my reading of the whole situation. Israel is going. Otherwise, 1 year ago, everyone was after Netanyahu's flood, saying, "No, no, you have to go. You can't do this." But today, things are. He's got the support of the nation. He's got support of the world. If he goes to the UN and they go and attack the Hezbollah when he's there and he comes out and as if nothing has happened, of course he would have cleared all the attacks. It's not easy to escalate. Right? Iran has said that they don't want to escalate. Possibly they don't want to escalate, but anything can happen tomorrow. And yesterday, I think it was last night that they had a meeting. Uh, Whether they would like to, how would they like to retaliate to Iran's the missile rain or what you call it, and they want a deadly reply at their own terms, and they want to surprise them. So we'll have to wait for the next step. Where it's very we can't sit out here and say nothing's going to happen. Things are not looking good at all.
Yeah, coming to India's ties with Palestine as well. So, how does India balance its growing defense ties with Israel while maintaining its historical support for the Palestinian cause?
See, our historical support of the Palestinian cause is based on issue based. Actually, basically, it's more on the moral grounds. And India, as in the past, always we have stood on a moral ground, and rightly so. We invested in the people of a particular nation. If you look at Palestine, we have invested in the people of Palestine. We invested in the people of even Afghanistan today. Though we are not talking to Taliban, but Taliban wants everything in India today. Right? Even if they win a cricket match, the Taliban praises India for that. So we have invested well in Afghanistan. We have invested well in the people. Irrespective of today, people can say even our neighborhood is in shambles, anti-India. But if you look at the long term, things will come back to it. Like Maldives is coming back, Nepal too is coming back, Bangladesh definitely, Sri Lanka again. So what I'm saying is that no, we have invested well into a Palestinian policy, and it's a steady policy, and we should not try to deviate from that. So we have interest in Israel, but Israel interests are defense interests, and let me say, Israel has always stood by us whenever we needed it. Even during the Kargil war, we need things, Israel gave it to us, or even later, or emergent demands were met by Israel. Right? And but Israel also has to look at is coming and recruiting people from India, skilled people from India to employ it there. So we are acceptable to both the countries, not only both the countries, to both the let's say contestants actually. The contestants which are anti-Israel and pro-Israel. So acceptable to them. So I think we should continue to do what we're doing. We don't need to reset our policy at all, and we should look after our interests.
Yeah. Now coming to India's energy security, because in recent times we have heard a lot of news about, Israel's possible plan to attack the, fuel bases of Iran. So, in what ways does the Iran-Israel conflict influence India's energy security, according to your analysis?
Yeah, that's a very major concern because if the prices of oil go up, and like I said, most of the energy flows through the Hormuz Strait of Hormuz, right? And if Israel was to attack the Iranian oil fields, and Iran was supposed to retaliate and close the Strait of Hormuz, the world would be in a disorder totally. Irrespective of the fact that we're getting a lot of crude from Russia, reprocessing it and sending it, but the prices would shoot up and to shoot up quite a bit. And that is where I think our economy will get impacted. And our oil demand is very high. And unfortunately, we're dependent on the West Asia and Russia for oil. So I think our energy needs, our energy security is very important. And that is why we are trying to make sure that it does not escalate to the next level. But if it escalates, yes, we'll have a problem. We have some reserves, but then gone are the days of the short swift wars. Uh, that myth has been broken. It is all unfinished long wars as we see it now, whether it's Arab Israel or whether it's Israel Iran or the Arab Israel going on or Ukraine Russia. So we find that the old thing that will be a short swift war and finish off in about a couple of weeks or more, that has been shattered actually. So that is one major change is come about. So we'll have to plan for long periods of conflict and how it impacts our economy, how it impacts our people, how it impacts our assets and our policy.
Yeah. So now coming to the peace initiative. So what opportunities and challenges do peace initiatives like the Abraham Accord present for India's relations with the broader Middle East? How do you see Abraham Accord and its implications on India?
See, Abraham Accord has been a good thing. That is why we find today that the Arab support to Israel is a silent to the Palestinian cause is silent support because four nations have Abraham Accord, but then the other nation which was supposed to sign the Abraham Accords that has been delayed. So what I find is India will have to push for peace actually. How much leverage we have is a question mark because this is a very sort of a sensitive sort of situation and very hardened positions on both sides. Too much has happened in the last 1 year, and there are political compulsions both within Israel and within the Palestinian cause. There are political compulsions, and both parties feel aggrieved and they feel they're right. A lot of destruction taken place, displacement taken place of people in millions actually, and that is where I think India can play not a major role, but we can keep continuing to play whatever bit role we have. In terms of financial aid, I don't think we can do very much, but we can give them what do you say, support based on issues again. Palestinian cause, our stance is clear. With Israel, our stance is clear. With terrorism, our stance is clear. We don't support terrorism at all. And we'll have to now see what steps actually the escalation takes on the country. If the escalation, like you rightly said, goes on to the next level and we find the issue with the oil, then we'll have to see what we have to do. And there are other players. It will not be India alone. What we'll do have to be in concert with other major players, whether it's the US, whether it's the European Union, whether it's Japan, or even for that matter, Russia and China, because we are acceptable to either side, including China also for that matter. Irrespective of, despite our problems on the manufacturing control, China and India still have again certain shared interests, and both will work to their own interests, but still we will have some say.
Yeah. So now coming to Indian Armed Forces angle. So what are the key takeaways for the Indian Armed Forces from the ongoing conflict, and not just the conflict, but on the recent pager attacks in Lebanon or the killings of Hezbollah and Hamas chief? What are the strategic lessons that can be drawn in terms of countering terrorism?
It's a very interesting one. We have to see the changing character of war actually, and if you put it in the Indian context also, we'll find that we have similar threats if you look at it, especially in the low intensity domain. We have similar threats. We have threats of terrorism emanating from across the borders from Pakistan. Uh, and we have our unsettled borders. We have Bangladesh, which is again in turmoil totally, with which we share the largest border. Bangladesh, which is talking of cutting the chicken necks, whether it's possible or not is besides the point. Right. So what we need to learn from them is that a very fair mix of technology and manpower. And let me give an example to it. It is anecdotal. In the year in 2008, I was deployed on the line of control, and we had the president that time the then chief of the Israeli Defense Forces visiting us. So we took him on the line of control, and we have a thing on the LC fence, the line of control fence. And I said, "Sir, before I brief you on the fence, he wanted to see how do counter infiltration. I would like to see how you do it." And then he gave us a complete rundown on how Israel does the counter infiltration drill, and they have 7 tiers of technology, uh, sensors, and absolutely high technology. And the man sitting there is only got to give orders for fire. That's all. Otherwise, even as they say in Hindi, parinda bhi nahi aa sakta time. Okay. So thereafter, when we showed him what we do, when he sat in the vehicle, the lady was also with him, and he tells his wife, "I think I need to replicate this in Israel." So what happened on 7th of October is a lesson learned that technology alone is not a solution. Technology with manpower, with human resource is the solution. Right? Too much dependence on technology. Technology can have counters, it can be overcome. That's what exactly happened. Right? So a lot of people ask me, can it happen along the LC? I said, no, it cannot happen along the LC because we man it physically. Technology is an aid. So we have to understand technology aid. But then with the pager attacks and with the walkie-talkie attacks, uh, Israel has taken this to the next level. And that is where I think we have to be very categorical in India because most of our ICT is subjected to supply chain infection. Right? We have procedures like L1. I'm not too sure. I've retired long time ago. I'm not too sure how much is supply chain infection for the Chinese parts is there. Okay. Even the the best fighter aircraft in the US is about 60% Chinese parts, technology, because everyone wants a cheaper model. So that is where I think we'll have to look at how we get over the supply chain infection from China. We'll also have to study. We should study the special forces operation. I think hats off to them. Having been the color of the parachute regiment of the Indian Army, I think this is something we need to really learn. We are good. We are very good. But then we'll have to learn from them and be better on that. And we need intelligence. Something we lack is a synergy between the strategic intelligence, between the operational intelligence, and the tactical intelligence. So that synergy, we have to have, what do you call one wall. Everything comes onto the same wall. Everyone, sees it in real time at the strategic level, the operational level, the tactical level, and that synergy is very important. And that inputs are synthesized and disseminated at the right time to the right people. Because the intelligence with the Israelis especially is absolutely wonderful. So though they got initially taken by surprise, but thereafter seeing. And then we should be looking at multi-domain warfare, whether it's sea, whether it's surface, whether it's space, cyber, snow, sand, we have all of it. So we should look at multi-domain warfare and how we shape the geopolitics before going to war or during the war would be another. Because this is something which has really emerged. How the geopolitics being shaped by narratives. The information war is, I think, something which we should invest more and more. This time ago. So these are some of the things, and I'm not going to the normal things of integrated theatre and all that. That will come much later. But these are something which we have known about it. But the war, the present conflict in Israel has given an impetus, and we've got to be very fast at inducting these technologies and exploiting them in our own character, in our own context, and in Indian way of warfighting.
Yeah. So I would like to conclude the discussion by asking that what is the way forward in this conflict and where do you see India's role here on a macro level?
I think that question would be very difficult for me to answer. That no one seems to have answers for that because the conflict is presently it is at a stage, like I said earlier, very hardened positions. Israel has a hardened position, Iran has a hardened position. Iran says, okay, what we've done is done. We're not going to escalate. Israel says, what you've done is an attack on us, and we will go. We will come at you with everything we have, or words to that effect. They said it'll be devastating, it'll be surprising, and it'll be, it'll have to be the next level. So I do feel that we'll have to wait and watch. I hope better sense prevails. I don't think India can do very much other than wait and watch. India has played its cards well, and we should not be seen taking sides. And in the multilateral forums, we should propagate sanity. Actually, that's the word I use, sanity. But if you see that if we have direct leverages over the players, I don't think we are in direct leverage. Right? They are very hard in positions, and I hope I'm proven wrong. And we have a conversation afterward a couple of months, and then you say, what are you totally wrong? And I would be very happy. But I see escalation to the next level. That's what I feel. Because Israel has said, pulled all its stops, and it says, we will not let this go. Right? So, and that is where I think the escalation comes in. They are not bothered about it. The attack on the Damascus, they did not even inform the Americans about it, which has not happened earlier. So that is the level we are talking about. And as far as terrorism is concerned, the Hezbollah, Hamas are concerned, you can kill one, you can kill two, you can kill three. But the moment you kill anyone, the next one comes up. Okay. You can neutralize the terrorists, But in the end, it has to be a political solution. A military solution to terrorism has not been there. Whether it is take an Indian context also, whether it is Mizoram, to some extent the Punjab militancy, I would call it, northeastern states, J&K right now, J&K is very peaceful in many ways. So the military solution is not there; it has to be a political solution, and that is what I don't see happening in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The two-nation theory is not being acceptable to the parties, and that is the only the two nations, the two-state, the two-nation theory is the only one which the world is propagating about, and India stands by that. But I don't think it's working right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Really hope the world becomes a safer place to live in. On this note, I want to end this interview. Thank you so much once again for your time and for sharing
Thank
your
you. And
valuable insights.
I've been very negative in my this thing, but I don't see a very bright future. So let's hope things improve and let's pray for it. And thank you very much for this podcast. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.